Leah loved mornings more than anything else. The light always came through her bedroom window in a soft way that made everything in the room look gentle and new, almost like the whole day was waiting for her to decide what it would become. She was only 8, but she already carried herself with the bright curiosity of someone who believed the world still had gifts to give her every single day. And to her, one of the biggest gifts was the small convenience store her family owned. Most kids her age loved playgrounds, cartoon shows, or long afternoons spent doing nothing but playing games. Leah liked those things too, but the store held a special place in her heart. It wasn't just a place where people bought snacks or drinks. To her, it was a little world filled with cheerful colors, familiar faces, and the warm sound of her parents' voices greeting customers. She had spent so many afternoons there.
Sitting on the counter while her mother worked, or following her father as he restocked shelves.
Over time, she had learned where every item belonged and even how to read price tags. The store had become a second home. On this particular morning, she woke up excited because her mother had told her the night before that a new snack had arrived: brightly wrapped fruit bars that came in flavors she had never tried. She had begged to come with her mother the night before to see them, but it was already too late. So she promised herself she would go early the next day. She washed up quickly, brushed her hair into a neat little puff, put on her favorite yellow hoodie, and slipped her feet into soft sneakers. Her mother wasn't coming with her today. She was already at the store, doing some early inventory. This meant Leah would get to surprise her. She loved surprising her mother, especially with simple things and expected hugs, little drawings she made, or just showing up with a big grin on her face. She hoped today would be another one of those warm surprises. She tied her laces, grabbed a small coin pouch she kept in her drawer, and hurried out the door. The sky was bright, but not too sunny, and the quiet of the morning felt peaceful as she walked. The store was only a few blocks away, so it didn't take long before she saw the colorful signs in the window. Her excitement grew with every step. When she reached the entrance, she stopped for a moment just to look inside. The lights were on. The aisle stood straight and neat. A customer was already browsing the drinks, and near the front counter stood the store's manager, a middle-aged man named Mr. Dalton. He had started working there a few months ago. Her mother had hired him because she needed help with morning shifts, and he seemed reliable. Leah didn't know him very well, but she had seen him around. He wasn't the smiling type, but she had never seen him be unkind either. So Leah didn't think twice as she pushed the door open. A small bell chimed above her head as she stepped inside. She loved that sound. She always thought it sounded like a cheerful hello. She walked in confidently, not running, not causing noise, just moving with the ease of someone who knew this place was hers. She made her way straight toward the aisle where she thought the new snacks would be. She didn't see them at first, so she walked toward the counter to ask where her mother placed them. "Good morning," she said softly, standing in front of the register. The manager didn't greet her back. Instead, he looked up at her with a confused expression, almost as if she had appeared out of nowhere. His eyebrows pulled together in a tight line. "What are you doing back here?" he asked. His voice wasn't angry, but it wasn't gentle either. It carried the tone adults sometimes used when they assumed a kid was doing something they shouldn't be doing. His reaction surprised her a little, but Leah stayed calm. "I'm just looking for the new snacks," she said. "My mom said You need to step away from the counter," he said, interrupting her. "This isn't a play area." Leah blinked, unsure what had just happened. She wasn't playing. She had walked in the same way she always did. She had talked politely. Why did he sound annoyed? "I'm not playing," she said quietly. "I just wanted to ask—" No, he cut her off again. "Kids aren't supposed to be behind the counter or hovering around it. Step back." She looked down at her shoes, feeling a small knot form in her stomach. She wasn't behind the counter at all, she was simply standing in front of it where any customer would stand. She didn't argue. She simply took a slow step backward. But her face showed confusion, almost disappointment. "I'm just here to buy something." She tried again. The manager tilted his head slightly, like he couldn't understand why a young girl would be wandering around alone. "Where are your parents?" he asked, sounding more frustrated than concerned. "At work," she said softly. "Here. My mom is here. he sighed. Where? I haven't seen her. She's in the back, I think, Leah answered. Then you should go find her, he said quickly. Customers need space. If you want something, you can wait until she comes out. A customer nearby looked over at the conversation, curious but quiet. Another customer further down the aisle glanced up too. They could feel something uncomfortable in the air. But Leah didn't notice them. She was too focused on the strange way the manager was speaking to her. She lowered her eyes and nodded, even though she didn't fully understand what she had done wrong. She wasn't bothering anyone. She wasn't touching anything she shouldn't. She just wanted a small treat from her. Family's own store. She took a few steps back, thinking maybe she would go to the snack aisle and look again herself. But the manager seemed to mistake her movement for wandering. Hey, he said sharply. Don't run around the store. If you're waiting for someone, wait by the door. Her quiet voice barely reached him when she said, I'm not running. Just stay near the front, he replied without looking at her. Already turning to help another customer, Leah stood still, a little stunned. She had never been told to wait by the door before. Not here. Not in the place she had helped dust shelves, fill baskets, and greet customers. She didn't know whether to feel embarrassed or upset. She only knew she felt small all of a sudden. Smaller than an 8-year-old should feel in a place she loved. She stood near the door as told, clutching her coin pouch tightly. The pouch was warm from her hands, and she kept squeezing it a little as though holding it would make her feel anchored. She looked around the store with quiet eyes, observing people wandering the aisles. Not one of them had been told to stand by the door. Not one had been spoken to sharply. She wondered if she had done something wrong, but couldn't think of a single thing. She waited silently for a few moments, hoping her mother would appear any second. But her mother was still in the storage room, sorting boxes. She had no idea what was happening outside. Leah tried to be patient. She even tried to cheer herself up by looking at the colorful signs around the store, but that knot in her stomach stayed. She felt something she didn't know how to name. It wasn't anger exactly. It wasn't sadness exactly. It was more like the feeling of being misplaced in a space that was supposed to feel like home. She decided she would politely try to speak again. She stepped 1 foot forward, gently like someone trying not to break a rule. Sir, she said to the manager, her voice barely above a whisper. Can I just buy one thing, please? I have money. He glanced at her with tired eyes, as if her request was unreasonable. Little one, I already told you. No wandering, no coming to the counter unless a parent is with you. This isn't a hangout spot. But I'm not enough, he said, shaking his head. Just wait for your mother. His words were not loud, but they struck her like a cold gust of wind. Her throat tightened. She pressed her lips together to keep them from trembling. She looked down again, wondering how something so simple had turned so wrong. Just then, the bell above the door chimed again as someone new entered the store. It was a woman who knew Leah and her parents well, a kind neighbor named Miss Dana, who came often for morning tea packets and fruit cups. She saw Leah standing by the door, holding her coin pouch with a troubled expression. Good morning, sweetheart, she said softly. Are you all right? Leah didn't answer right away. She didn't want to bother anyone or make a fuss. But she also didn't want to lie. So she just shrugged a little, unsure how to explain what she felt. Miss Dana followed her gaze and noticed how the manager was looking at her impatient. Dismissive, almost irritated by her presence. She put the pieces together quickly, though carefully. She leaned down slightly and asked, Do you want to tell me what happened? Leah hesitated, then quietly said, He won't let me buy anything. Miss Dana's eyebrows raised gently, not in anger, but in concern. Did you do something wrong? I don't think so, Leah whispered. I just wanted to get the new snack. But he said I shouldn't be here unless my mom is with me. Miss Dana straightened her posture, her gentle face firming with calm seriousness. She looked toward the back of the store where the storage door was closed. Is your mom in there? She asked. Yes. Do you want me to call her? Leah looked up with wide, searching eyes. Please. Miss Dana nodded, pulled her phone from her bag, and stepped aside to dial. The moment the phone began ringing in the storage room, the entire tone of the morning quietly shifted. Something was starting. Something none of them realized yet, not even Leah. It wasn't loud or dramatic. It didn't feel like a storm. Instead, it felt like a small truth slowly rising to the surface. A truth that would change everything in the next 7 minutes. When the phone rang in the storage room, Leah's mother looked up from the boxes she was sorting. She had been organizing new products for the week: fruit bars, cereal packs, rice bags, and a few household items. The room smelled faintly of cardboard and fresh plastic wrapping, as she had been humming softly to make the work feel lighter. When she saw the caller ID from the front of the store, she grew curious. She wiped her hands on her apron and answered quickly. "Hello?" "Hi," Miss Dana said gently. "Sorry to bother you. I'm at the front of the store, and I think you might want to come out for a moment." "Everything's fine, but I think Leah needs you." The mother's expression shifted instantly, not to fear, but to alertness. Anytime a parent hears their child's name spoken with that kind of careful tone, something inside them wakes up. Not panic, exactly just a pull in the heart that says, "Go check." "Is she okay?" the mother asked quietly. "She's not hurt," Miss Dana assured her. "Just come up front. I'll be right there." She hung up, set the box cutter aside, and walked briskly to the door. She pushed it open and stepped into the store, expecting to see Leah near the snack aisle, or maybe helping a customer find something. Instead, she saw her daughter standing near the entrance with her little coin pouch clutched in both hands. Her shoulders slightly raised as if she were trying to make herself smaller. That sight alone made the mother stop for half a second, not because anything dramatic was happening, but because she knew her child. And she knew that posture. It was the posture of someone trying hard not to cry or cause trouble. It was the posture of someone who didn't understand why she was being treated differently. The mother walked straight to her. "Hey, sweetheart," she said in a soft voice, kneeling down so she was eye level with her daughter. "What's going on?" Leah took a tiny breath, as if she had been holding one inside her chest for a while. "I tried to buy something," she whispered, "but he said I shouldn't be here alone." The mother blinked slowly, trying to understand. "Who said that?" Leah turned her eyes toward the counter without pointing. She didn't want to cause trouble, not even now. The mother followed her gaze and saw the manager ringing up another customer with a stiff expression. Unaware that anything was wrong, Miss Dana stepped closer. "I saw what happened," she said softly. "She wasn't doing anything wrong. She just walked up to ask for a snack, and he told her to step away from the counter. Then he told her to wait by the door. It made her uncomfortable." The mother listened in silence, her face calm but serious. She wasn't someone who raised her voice easily. She wasn't someone who liked causing scenes. But she was someone who paid attention, especially when it came to her child. She turned back to Leah gently. "Did you tell him who you were?" Leah shook her head. "I tried to talk, but he kept stopping me." Mother lowered her eyes for a moment, thinking, not out of anger, out of clarity. She knew her daughter wasn't the type to misbehave or wander around messing with things. She had grown up in this store. She respected it. She loved it. And for her to be told she didn't belong in it, that struck something deeper than frustration. She stood up slowly and smoothed the front of her apron. Then she gave Miss Dana a grateful nod. "Thank you for calling me." "Of course," Miss Dana said kindly. She looked so uncomfortable. "I couldn't just walk past." The mother placed a hand on Leah's back. "Come with me, sweetheart." Leah hesitated. "Am I in trouble?" Her mother's face softened instantly. "No, not at all. You didn't do anything wrong." They walked together toward the counter. The manager looked up when he noticed movement. He put on a neutral expression, the kind people wear when they're not sure what complaint is coming their way. "Oh," he said, clearing his throat. "Hello." "Good morning," the mother replied with steady calmness. "Can we talk for a moment?" "Sure," he said, though he didn't sound enthusiastic. He finished bagging the previous customer's items, handed them over, and the customer gave a polite smile before stepping aside. When the counter was free, the mother placed her hand gently on Leah's shoulder. "My daughter says she tried to buy something, and you told her she couldn't be here." The manager adjusted his posture, trying to stand straighter. "Well, I didn't say she couldn't be here. I just said she shouldn't wander around unattended. We have rules, you know. Kids can't be hanging around the counter or walking around without supervision. She wasn't wandering, the mother said, still calm. She was trying to make a purchase. He frowned. She didn't say that. I did, Leah said softly. You didn't let me finish. The manager didn't look at her when she spoke. He only looked at the mother as if the girl weren't standing there at all. Well, he exhaled, this store gets busy at times. I can't have children approaching the counter unless they have a parent with them. That's the policy. The mother tilted her head slightly. Whose policy is that? Store policy, he replied. The mother kept her tone slow and even. I've never heard of that policy. It's a safety thing, the manager added, attempting to sound confident. Kids get into things. They touch things they shouldn't. I just wanted to keep everything in order, but she wasn't touching anything she shouldn't, the mother said. She just asked for a snack. It looked like she was going behind the counter, he insisted. Leah's eyes widened a little. I didn't go behind it, she whispered. The manager didn't acknowledge her again. I was just trying to keep things running smoothly, he continued, his voice a bit more defensive now. If I let every kid come up here and ask questions, it slows everything down. At that moment, a couple of customers nearby started paying attention. They weren't trying to be nosy. They just sensed tension in the air and wondered what was happening. The mother noticed them, but didn't let it influence her. She stayed focused. I understand that you want to keep the store organized, she said. But my daughter isn't just any child. She's familiar with this place. She knows the rules better than most adults who walk through here. The manager raised an eyebrow. Well, even so, she lives and breathes this store, the mother continued, her tone still calm, but carrying an unmistakable firmness now. She has helped pack shelves. She has helped label things. She understands where everything goes, and she definitely knows how to wait her turn. The manager folded his arms. That may be the case, but I still can't make exceptions. It's not an exception, the mother said. Her voice was quiet but strong. It's her store. The words hung in the air like something heavy and unexpected. The manager's folded arms loosened. What do you mean? I mean, the mother said, she is one of the owners of this store. My husband and I included her in our business legally last year. Her name is on the documents. She has rights here. This place is part of her future. So when she walks in and asks for a simple snack, she shouldn't be treated like a child wandering into a place she doesn't belong. The manager blinked, clearly stunned. His eyes shifted from the mother to Leah and then back again. You're joking, he said weakly. I'm not, the mother replied. She is the youngest conor here. She belongs in this store as much as I do. There was a small pause where the manager seemed unsure what to say next. He looked like someone trying to put two pieces of a puzzle together that clearly didn't fit the way he expected them to. Well, finally managed. She still needs supervision. She can't just walk in, and she didn't walk in to take things, the mother said. She walked in to buy something. With her own money, La held up her little coin pouch as quiet proof. The manager stared at it, but his face shifted awkwardly. Like he didn't know how to respond to an 8-year-old holding up a pouch of coins. Customer by the drinks aisle shook their head a little. Not at Leah, but at the situation. Even from afar, they could see the imbalance. And how the conversation was unfolding. The mother noticed the manager's discomfort and decided to explain without raising her voice or creating a scene. She came here respectfully, the mother said. She greeted you. She stood where every customer stands, and you told her to wait by the door. That doesn't feel right. The manager swallowed, his voice low. I didn't mean anything by it. I'm sure you didn't, the mother replied, still gentle. But sometimes harm doesn't come from intention. It comes from how someone is treated without thinking. The manager looked at Leah again. And this time he seemed to see her properly, not as a child in the way, but as a person who had been hurt. I didn't know she was involved in the store, he said. She doesn't have to own the store for you to treat her with respect, the mother replied softly. That single sentence pierced the air with quiet truth. It wasn't harsh, but it was honest in a way that left no room for misunderstanding. For the first time since the conversation began, the manager's shoulders softened, not in surrender but in realization. He exhaled slowly, his eyes lowering. I'm sorry, he murmured. Didn't see things clearly. The mother nodded. Thank you for saying that. There was no anger in her voice, just calm acknowledgement. But the moment wasn't over yet. She knelt again beside her daughter. Sweetheart, she asked quietly, do you want to tell him how you felt? Leah hesitated. Children aren't always used to expressing their feelings to adults who have authority, but her mother's voice gave her confidence. She looked up at the manager with soft eyes. I felt like I wasn't supposed to be here, she said, but I love this place. You talked to me like I was doing something bad. Just wanted to get a snack. The manager nodded slowly. He didn't interrupt. For once, he simply listened. I didn't want to bother anyone, Leah continued. I just wanted to buy something, that's all. The space grew quiet for a moment. The mother stood again, placing her hand gently on the counter. I think we all learned something today. The manager looked down at the register for a moment. I suppose we did. But something deeper was still moving beneath the surface, something that hadn't fully risen yet. The mother sensed it. She wasn't finished assessing the situation, not because she wanted to punish anyone, but because she wanted to make sure her daughter's dignity was restored and protected. She studied the manager carefully, watching the way his eyes shifted, the way his shoulders moved, the way he fidgeted with the register keys. She wasn't judging, she was observing. Every observation was forming a clearer picture in her mind. Something wasn't aligning. Something didn't feel like a simple misunderstanding. Something felt like a pattern one she hadn't seen until now. And in the next few minutes, that pattern would become undeniable. Not because of conflict, but because truth always rises when someone chooses to stand quietly, firmly and without fear. And Leah's mother was just beginning. For a long moment after the apology, the store felt strangely quiet. Not silent, there were still customers walking around, still the soft hum of the refrigerators and the sound of bags being lifted from shelves. But quiet in the way people become when something important has just happened. Even the customers who had been pretending not to notice seemed more alert now. Leah stayed close to her mother. Her small fingers held onto the side of her mother's shirt, not out of fear, but because she didn't know what was supposed to happen next. She had never been in a moment like this before where grown-ups talked. In serious voices and customers stared politely from behind the cereal aisle. Her mother gave her a quick rub on the back, a silent reassurance. Then she looked at the manager again, studying him with the calm patience of someone who didn't rush to judgment. She wasn't angry, she wasn't yelling. She just wanted to understand why her child had been made to feel so small. I appreciate that you apologized, she said gently. But I need to ask you something, and I'd like you to answer honestly. The manager nodded, though he looked uneasy. All right, the time you've worked here, she continued, have you ever treated other customers this way? Children? I mean, have you ever told other kids to step away before they even spoke? He hesitated. A small pause, barely a breath long. But the mother caught it. She had worked with people long enough to know when someone was trying to choose their words carefully. Well, he said slowly, sometimes kids run around or try to grab candy without asking. It happens a lot. I try to keep things in order. That's understandable, the mother replied. But was Leah running around? No, he admitted. Was she touching candy without paying? No, was she distracting you from your work? Again, he hesitated. Not exactly. So why treat her like that? The mother asked in a steady tone. Not harsh. Just steady, like she was guiding him toward something he had tried not to acknowledge. The manager looked at the counter, then at the shelves, then at the customers who were now listening a little more obviously. His face tightened in a way that suggested he had been carrying tension for much longer than this one moment. She looked like she was going to wander behind the counter, he said again, though his voice lacked the earlier confidence. I guess I reacted quickly. Too quickly, the mother said softly. He sighed. Yes. One of the customers, a tall man holding a loaf of bread, shook his head slightly. Another, a woman choosing tea boxes, crossed her arms, watching with quiet interest. None of them spoke, but their presence added weight to the conversation. The mother looked around the store. She saw faces she recognized, regular customers who came every week. She knew some of them had children of their own. She also knew that The way a store treated people mattered more than most businesses realized. She turned back to the manager. I want to ask you another thing, and I need you to think about it carefully. He nodded again. Was this the first time you reacted this way to her? The manager opened his mouth but didn't speak. His jaw moved slightly, as if he was unsure whether to admit something or insist that he had acted fairly. Leah watched him quietly, her eyes wide but calm. Finally, he exhaled. No, he said, lowering his voice. There were a few times I thought she was getting too close to things. I didn't want her messing up the inventory or distracting customers. The mother's expression softened, not out of sympathy, but because she now understood. The truth she had sensed earlier was becoming clear. You assumed she was causing trouble, she said. The manager rubbed the back of his neck. I guess I did, even though she never has, he didn't answer. But silence often speaks louder than any explanation. Leah's mother took a gentle breath. She didn't want to embarrass anyone, but she wouldn't ignore what had happened either. She had taught her daughter that silence could sometimes feel like agreement, and she wasn't going to agree to something that made her child feel unwelcome. Let me ask you this, she said. Have you ever noticed how she always greets people? How she never runs in the store? How she helps stack things sometimes? Have you noticed how the customers smile at her? The manager looked down. I didn't really pay attention. That's the issue, the mother said softly. You didn't pay attention? Not to her actions? Not to who she is? You only reacted to what you assumed. Leah's mother wasn't interested in scolding him. Instead, she wanted him to see what his actions had done. She knelt down again to face her daughter, who was quietly listening. Sweetheart, she said gently, when you came in today, were you excited to buy something? Leah nodded, and you walked in politely. She nodded again. And when he told you to step away, how did you feel? Leah looked down at her pouch of coins. It's like I wasn't supposed to be here. The mother nodded slowly, then looked up at the manager. Do you hear that? The manager swallowed. Yes. She wasn't just disappointed, the mother continued. She felt like she didn't belong in the store she grew up in the place where she spent her afternoons helping us. It only took a few words to make her feel that way. The manager nodded again, this time with more sincerity. I really am sorry, he said quietly. The mother let the silence settle for a moment, not awkwardly, just enough for the words to sink in. Then she stood up and looked at him with a softer tone. I believe that people can learn. I really do. But learning only works when someone truly understands what needs to change. Leah, standing beside her mother, watched the exchange with a mixture of curiosity and quiet concern. She wasn't frightened anymore. She felt protected. But she was also beginning to understand something new, something about how grown-ups sometimes made mistakes without meaning to, and how those mistakes could hurt people, even when no harm was intended. The mother stepped aside for a moment and encouraged Leah to sit on a nearby stool. Wait here, sweetheart. I need to ask a few more questions. Leah nodded and sat down, her legs dangling as she watched with wide eyes. The mother returned her attention to the manager. I want to know how long this kind of thing has been happening. Not just today, not just with her. I want to understand the pattern. He nodded slowly. I've been strict with a lot of kids who came in. His eyes shifted toward a family, browsing near the back. Sometimes kids mess things up. They make noise. They open things without paying. It becomes a problem. I understand that, the mother said. Children can be active, but were you strict with all kids, or just some? Her tone was soft but precise. The manager hesitated. The mother waited. The truth eventually found its own way out. He exhaled. Maybe. I wasn't fair about it. The mother nodded. Thank you for being honest. A woman browsing snacks nearby glanced up, her face quietly understanding. Young teenager in the corner put down the soda bottle he had been holding and watched closely. Even Miss Dana, who had stepped aside earlier, lingered nearby in case she was needed. The mother turned to the manager again. Running a store isn't easy. I know that better than most. But treating customers fairly, especially children's part of good leadership. And how you treat children says a lot about how you treat everyone else. His expression softened in a way that suggested he knew she was right. I didn't mean to make the store uncomfortable, he said. I wanted things to run smoothly. Maybe I went about it the wrong way.
Right.
It's not about wanting things to run smoothly, the mother replied. It's about how you choose to speak to people, especially those who aren't strong enough or old enough to speak up for themselves. She glanced back at Leah, who was listening quietly from the stool. Children carry these moments longer than we think, the mother added. The manager pressed his lips together, looking genuinely weighed down by his own actions. But there is something else I need to understand, she continued. When you saw her approach the counter, what did you think she was going to do? The manager shifted, I thought. Maybe she would go behind the counter or pick something up without telling me. So why assume she would today? He didn't answer, but the silence formed its own story one. That made the mother's heart ache more than anger. She turned and looked around the store again, noticing how quietly everyone was standing now. People weren't judging or criticizing. They were waiting, watching, and learning something too. The mother took a slow breath and then walked back to her daughter. She placed a gentle hand on Leah's shoulder. "Sweetheart," she said softly, "I want you to listen closely. What happened today wasn't your fault. You didn't do anything wrong. Sometimes adults make mistakes because they don't see the full picture. But that doesn't mean you change who you are. You stay kind. You stay patient. You stay confident in yourself." Leah nodded slowly, absorbing every word. Her mother smiled at her, then turned back to the manager. "There's something I want you to understand," she said. "My daughter is not here to cause trouble. She is here because this store is part of her life. She respects it. She helps take care of it. She watches how people treat each other. And children learn by watching. So what you say to her matters," the manager nodded. "You're right. And this isn't just about her being a Koner," the mother added. "Even if she weren't, even if she were just a child from the neighborhood, she still deserves to feel welcome when she walks in." "Yes," he said quietly. Miss Dana stepped forward at that moment, placing a hand gently on the counter. "I've seen this little one help customers find things. People adore her. She's never once caused any trouble." She smiled warmly at Leah. "She's a sweet kid." Leah smiled back softly. The manager looked genuinely surprised. As if he had never noticed these things, the mother watched his expression and realized something important. He wasn't a bad person. He wasn't cruel. He was simply someone who had fallen into habits without questioning them. Someone who had let assumptions guide his behavior instead of fairness. But habits that go unexamined can still hurt people, especially small, gentle people. The mother looked at him one last time. "There's something I need to think about," she said quietly. "But for now, I need to make sure my daughter feels safe here," he nodded. "I understand." The mother took Leah's hand. "Come on, sweetheart. We'll talk more in the office." Leah hopped off the stool and followed her mother toward the hallway that led to the back. Customers parted slightly to give them space, some offering small smiles of support. As the two of them walked away, the manager stood behind the counter, looking down at his hands. He wasn't angry. He wasn't frustrated. He was thoughtful deeply, quietly thoughtful, because he had realized something important. Sometimes the biggest mistakes aren't loud. Sometimes they are quiet moments when someone forgets to see the person standing right in front of them, and those mistakes stay with people, especially children. Especially the ones who deserved better. What the mother would decide next was still unknown. But one thing was certain: the next 7 minutes would change everything. For a few seconds after Leah's mother finished asking the manager to step aside, it felt like time waited to see what he would do. He stood there, almost frozen, as if he didn't know which part of the moment to respond to first: the mother's steady tone, the customers watching, or the quiet presence of the little girl who had been treated like she didn't belong in her own family's store. His face showed the kind of uneasiness that comes when someone realizes they may have gone too far and doesn't know how to step back with grace. Leah stayed close to her mother, not hiding, but not pushing herself forward either. She was still trying to understand everything happening around her. Only minutes ago, she had wanted nothing more than to buy a snack and enjoy her morning. Now, she was watching grown-ups speak in careful voices, watching strangers look at her with sympathy, and watching the manager who made her feel small try to gather himself in front of the entire room, her mother placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. As if to say, "I'm right here," didn't fix the confusing feeling in Leah's chest, but it softened it a little. The manager finally cleared his throat. "I think this is being exaggerated," he said, trying to sound firm, but his voice betrayed a slight tremor. "I didn't know she was connected to the store. I was only enforcing rules." Her mother nodded slowly. "I understand rules," she replied. "But a rule loses its purpose when it hurts people for no reason. And my daughter wasn't breaking any rule. She wasn't loud, she wasn't running, she wasn't being disrespectful. She was simply trying to buy something in a store her family owns." The words carried a weight that didn't need volume. A few customers nodded quietly. One woman, who had watched the earlier interaction from the canned goods aisle, folded her arms and murmured under her breath, "That child didn't do anything wrong." Another man near the refrigerator section whispered to someone beside him, "It shouldn't have gotten to this point." These weren't loud comments, but the manager heard them, and they added pressure he couldn't avoid. His face turned a shade redder, and he looked down as though the floor had suddenly become very interesting. Her mother continued, still calm but firm. "You stopped her without listening. You dismissed her without thinking. And when she tried to explain, you chose to talk over her instead of to her. That is the problem." The manager shifted uncomfortably. "I didn't mean to disrespect anyone." "But you did," her mother replied, without anger, but with a clarity that made the words stronger. "And this is not the first time I have heard concerns about how you treat customers." A small ripple went through the store. That part was new information to the shoppers. The manager's posture stiffened. "If people had concerns, they should have told me." "They did," her mother said softly, "and I gave you time to adjust, time to learn, time to grow into the role. But today shows me you've been choosing the same behavior again and again." Leah watched her mother with quiet admiration. She didn't shout. She didn't embarrass anyone on purpose. She simply spoke the truth in a way that made the room listen. The manager tried to speak again, his voice a shade defensive. "You're making it sound like I did something terrible. I was just trying to keep order." Leah's mother looked at him with steady eyes. "You made an 8-year-old feel unwelcome in a place that should have been safest for her, and not because she did anything wrong. You did it because you didn't bother to see her." Her mother then crouched down slightly so she was eye level with Leah. The store faded out a little in that moment. No customers. No manager. Just a mother and her child. "Do you want to tell me how you felt?" she asked gently. Leah swallowed, her throat still tight from earlier. I didn't understand why he was so upset with me," she said softly. "I wasn't trying to break anything. I just wanted to buy something. And when I tried to talk, he told me to move away. It made me feel like I didn't belong here." Her voice cracked at the end, but she didn't cry. She was trying very hard to be brave, and her mother recognized that kind of bravery. Quiet kind that doesn't need attention but still deserves respect. Her mother stood up again. Her expression even calmer than before, but also more resolute. "Thank you for telling me," she said to Leah. Then she turned back to the manager. "This is exactly why we're having this conversation." The manager opened his mouth, but nothing came out. He looked around, maybe hoping someone would defend him. But everyone's gaze held the same message. We saw what happened. A man near the counter stepped forward slightly. "Sir, she really didn't do anything wrong," he said politely. "She waited like anyone else would. She spoke kindly. She didn't even raise her voice," another customer added. "And when she tried to explain herself, you cut her off. That's not enforcing rules. That's just shutting someone down." The manager blinked, as if the words stung more because now they came from strangers. Her mother raised her hand slightly to stop the conversation from spiraling. "This isn't about punishing you with embarrassment," she said. "This is about accountability." The manager sighed, looking suddenly tired. "What do you want me to say?" "You've already said what you felt," her mother replied. "Now let me tell you what comes next." The store grew even quieter, not tense, but attentive, like everyone was leaning in without moving. "I trusted you with this place," she began. "Not just the shelves and the stock and the registers, but the way people feel when they walk through the door. A store isn't just products. It's people. And the way you treat people shapes whether they return or turn away. The manager looked down again. "Today you made my daughter feel small," she continued, "and that alone is serious. But you also made customers uncomfortable. You made assumptions instead of asking questions. And you handled a simple moment like it was a problem." She took a slow breath. "I can't let that happen again. Not here, not to her, not to anyone." Leah watched the manager's expression shift from defensive to uneasy to something closer to acceptance, like he finally understood the full picture. Her mother rested a hand gently on Leah's back. "Before I make any final decision, I want to hear what Leah thinks. She deserves that. This store is part of her life too." Soft, surprised murmur traveled through the customers. It wasn't common for a child to be asked something so serious. Her mother turned to her fully. "What do you think should happen? Speak honestly. You're safe." Has she ever done anything like that before? No. Leah looked at the manager, then at her mother, then at the room around her. She didn't rush. She didn't look for approval. She just focused on the feeling in her chest, the same feeling she had when the manager had told her to move away. The same feeling that made her question her place in the store, I think. She said slowly, her voice gentle but steady. "I think someone who works here should be kind and listen and not make people feel like they shouldn't be here." Her mother nodded. "Anything else?" Leah hesitated, then continued. "I don't think he should stay if he keeps making people feel bad." The manager closed his eyes for a moment, as if the words spoken so simply hit harder than anything an adult could have said. Her mother nodded softly, turning back to him. "You heard her." The manager didn't argue. He didn't try to defend himself anymore. Instead, he gave a small, reluctant nod. Knowing the decision had been made long before he stepped behind the counter that morning, he just hadn't realized it yet. Her mother spoke with calm finality. "You will finish your shift today, and then we'll begin the process of letting you go. I wish you well, but this environment needs someone who understands the value of kindness." The customers didn't cheer. They didn't celebrate. They simply nodded in support. The way people do when they know a fair decision has been made. Leah let out a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. Her mother gave her a gentle squeeze on the shoulder. "You did well," she whispered. "Very well." And as the manager stepped aside quietly, the store slowly returned to its natural rhythm, but with a different atmosphere, one that felt lighter, clearer, and more respectful than it had in a long time. For a long moment after everything settled, Leah stood near her mother, trying to understand the new calm in the room. The tension that had filled the store earlier was gone. It's almost like someone had opened a window and let fresh air drift through. She could sense it in the way customers walked around again, in how the aisles felt lighter, in how people spoke softly to one another as they continued shopping. It didn't erase what had happened, but it made the space feel different, safer, in a quiet way. Her mother gently brushed Leah's hair away from her face. "Are you feeling okay?" she asked. Leah nodded, though she wasn't completely sure what okay meant in that moment. She just knew she didn't feel as small as she had earlier. She didn't feel confused anymore. She felt understood, and she felt seen. That alone warmed her chest with a soft sense of comfort. "Let's sit for a moment," her mother said. They walked to a small bench near the front window. The sunlight outside was bright but warm, and the bench had always been Leah's favorite spot because she could watch people come and go. Today, though, she didn't pay attention to the customers. Her mind was still replaying the things she had said, the things her mother had said, and the look on the manager's face when he realized his behavior had consequences. Her mother sat beside her, keeping her close without crowding her. "You spoke from your heart," she said gently. "That takes courage." Leah looked down at her hands. "I didn't want to make him feel bad." "I know," her mother replied. "But you also didn't want him to keep making people feel bad. And you were honest. Sometimes honesty feels heavy, even when it's the right thing." Leah listened quietly, thinking about that. She hadn't meant to cause trouble, and she certainly hadn't expected to be part of such an important moment. She only wanted to buy a snack. but somehow, without planning it, she had helped her mother make a decision that would change the store for the better. Nah. Soft knock on the glass door caught their attention. A familiar neighbor, an older woman who visited the store almost every week, stepped inside and gave Leah a warm smile. "You did very well today," she said kindly after walking over. "Not everyone your age can speak up like that." Leah felt her cheeks warm, unsure of what to say. "I was just telling the truth. That's exactly why it mattered," the neighbor said. Then she looked at Leah's mother. "You're raising her beautifully." Her mother nodded gratefully but didn't say anything. She didn't need to. Sometimes silence carries its own meaning. When the neighbor left, few other customers approached softly, offering kind words. One said she handled it better than most adults would. Another added, "This store will be better because of what happened today." Each time, Leah felt a mixture of surprise and shyness. She wasn't used to people praising her for something she didn't plan to do. Eventually, her mother guided her back to the bench, sensing she needed a break from all the attention. After a few minutes, the store returned to its usual rhythm. People came in and out. The sound of bags rustling, carts rolling, and small conversations filled the air again. The store felt normal, but also changed in a lasting way. A little later, her mother stood up. "Let's take a walk through the store," she suggested. "I think it's good for you to remember that this place is yours too." Leah nodded, and they walked together through the aisles. She ran her fingers lightly along the shelves, not touching anything too firmly, just feeling the textures and shapes. She passed by the snack aisle where everything began earlier, and for a moment she paused. "Are you thinking about what happened?" her mother asked gently. A little, Leah answered. "It's just strange. I didn't think something simple could turn into something big." "That's how life works sometimes," her mother said. "Small moments can teach big lessons." They continued walking. When they reached the checkout counter, the manager was still there finishing his last shift. He didn't say anything to them, but his posture was different, more subdued, more careful. Leah felt a small twist in her stomach. She didn't hate him. She didn't even want him to feel bad. She just wanted him to understand. Her mother placed a hand on her shoulder, guiding her away. "You've done your part," she whispered. "You can let it rest now." Leah nodded slowly. She knew her mother was right. They spent the next hour organizing a few shelves, greeting customers, and checking inventory. It gave the store a sense of normalcy again. Every now and then, customers thanked them for how the situation had been handled. But her mother always responded with the same gentle smile, as if to say the moment was already behind them. Later that afternoon, when the manager finally packed his things and left, he paused at the door. He looked toward them, not with anger, but with something softer, perhaps reflection, or perhaps understanding. He didn't say anything, and neither did they. He simply nodded and walked out quietly. "Come help me in the office," her mother said once the door closed. The office was a small room tucked behind the shelves, cozy and filled with papers, a little table, and a corkboard with schedules pinned up. When they stepped inside, her mother closed the door softly and pulled out a chair for her daughter. "Sit for a moment," she said. Leah climbed onto the chair, her legs dangling above the floor. Her mother sat opposite her. "I want to tell you something important," she said. "What happened today wasn't just about a mistake or a misunderstanding. It was about learning how to treat people." Leah nodded quietly. "You reminded all of us," her mother continued, "that kindness is not optional. It's something people deserve no matter how young or quiet they are." Leah looked down, unsure how to respond. Her mother leaned forward slightly. "And do you know the part that made me proud?" Leah asked softly. "You didn't speak out to win. You didn't speak out to punish. You spoke out because you wanted things to be fair. That kind of heart is rare." Leah felt a warm feeling spread through her chest. She wasn't used to hearing herself described that way. It made her feel bigger inside, not in a proud way, but in a hopeful one. Her mother reached across the table and held her hands. "This store is more than a building. It's a place people come to feel welcome, and today you protected that." Leah absorbed the words slowly. She had never thought of herself as someone who could protect something so important. She was only 8, but maybe, she realized, even someone small can make a big difference if their intentions are good. Her mother got up and checked the time. "We still have work to do," she said gently. "We need to look for a new manager, someone who understands how to treat people." Leah brightened a little at that. "Can we pick someone who smiles a lot?" Her mother laughed softly. "A smile is a good start. But I want someone who listens. Someone who treats customers like real people, not problems." "Maybe someone who likes helping others," Leah added. "That would be perfect," her mother agreed. They spent the next hour going through the list of applicants pinned on the corkboard. There were several names, each with short descriptions. Some had experience in customer service, some were new to the field but eager to learn, and some mentioned community work that showed patience and compassion. Leah read each description with slow interest. Asking questions when she didn't understand something, her mother explained everything with patience: what a reference was, what experience meant, why certain traits mattered more than others. In the end, they picked 3 names to interview later in the week. All 3 seemed kind and thoughtful, qualities that felt right for the store. When they finished, her mother smiled warmly. "You helped again," she said. Liya blinked in surprise. "I did." "You did," her mother said. "A store works best when the people running it care. You helped choose people who care."